we're in the process of doing that budget adoption process, and everybody will get a copy of that proposed budget once it gets finalized, mailed to you in accordance with the statute, so we can adopt our budget by the end of the year and move forward. So, again, I just want to make clear this is not a board meeting. This will be operating in town hall fashion. Scott Samuels will address any questions and items he's had. I know he's passed out kind of a easy to read type of document in response to the amendments that were mailed out, and with their opinions on it. So, okay, yes.
Steve,
Yes.
question.
Yes.
My understanding is that town hall meetings need to be noticed. And
Again,
this town hall meeting hasn't been noticed.
I'm not saying this is an official town hall meeting, so this will be going in as a town hall type of fashion. I mean, it's more like a social get together, if you will. You don't have to stay. You can stay if you want to hear. The gentlemen are going to speak their opinions and review a couple of things, but it's completely unofficial.
So it's not a town hall meeting.
Not an official town hall meeting. Yes.
It's not a town hall
No,
meeting.
it's going to be. I said it'll be in like town hall fashion.
Fashion.
Yes. In other words, just an open social conversation.
Open social. Oh, okay. Just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, no.
I didn't understand, because I know Mr. Samuels is very fussy about the dating of the noticing of meetings.
Right,
If
this-
something isn't noticed within a certain hour, a certain minute, then he wants to change the date.
Right. There's nothing official about tonight's meeting. There are no decisions that are going to be made. It's merely a discussional evening. So, again,
What's with the shoe? Hey, Terry.
Can you hear me now? Yes. We were hoping to have all 9 board members here because this is a very important meeting. The board has decided to levy an assessment, is considering increasing maintenance. They've given you new amendments, and you know very, very little about it. And the purpose here is to let the people be advised what is going on here. In the amendments which you have, this is a timely matter. These amendments have been in process for virtually 6 months or more. And they've been done and redone and redone and redone, and they're still not the way they're supposed to be in our opinion. We have requested changes, and we were denied these changes. But what we have today is not what Stuart and I prepared today, but we have what the board has given you is this bunch of papers, which is, it's a lot of legal language, very hard to understand. The pages are back to back. It's very, very difficult, and it was difficult for us to come up with this analysis here. But this is how we feel. You can vote any way you want. We made it as clear as we could. Now, we would like to, if you'd like to, you can control this meeting as far as I'm concerned, or we're concerned. You want to talk about individual amendments, if we're taking up that portion of the meeting now, or do you want to go into another part of the meeting? We have proposed, well, we have to talk about the amendments. So I can get up, any of you can get up and come up here and talk. This is an open house, there's no restrictions. You can ask questions. Any questions you want? Yes, B. Bill?
Well, I consider myself a reasonably intelligent person. I consider myself a reasonably intelligent person. I could not understand those amendments. I have no idea what they said. So I'm against all of them.
Okay, I'm on the same page with you, and probably 800 others are in the community. It's very difficult to read. That's why we made this little Cliff's Notes version of the minute. Any questions on the amendments? You've got them. You don't have to bring these in until, what is the date, Steve?
September 25th, I think.
September
And we
25th.
finalized it in that last week.
Yeah, they have to be put in an envelope. You have an envelope that came in your package with the yellow proxy. You have to fill that out properly, mark what you want, and just bring it into the office. On September 25th, there's going to be a meeting. This is a unit owners meeting, a membership meeting. And at that meeting, they will count these proxies that you send in. That's all that's going to be done at that meeting, is this counting of the proxies, and then you'll know how these go. So you take those papers home with you. If you need more, we can always make more. You don't have to agree with what we believe, but do whatever you want to do and vote the way you want. Okay? Are there any questions on the amendments?
Yeah, I have a couple things, Scott. You know, everybody has their own free choice to vote how they want on these things. I guess one of the comments I have about it, and I attended an open board meeting over at the attorney's office with the board members present. And I guess I didn't hear correctly, but it was my understanding
I'm having a
that
problem hearing. Stuart, maybe you better help me out. I'm a little hard of hearing. And this has got such a low note.
He was saying he was at the
I was at the board meeting
lawyer's office.
at the attorney's office.
He
One
was
of
at
the-
the meeting in the attorney's office.
20 months ago.
No, just recently.
The one you had recently. It was an open meeting.
Oh, yeah, that
You were
one.
there, right?
One of the things we discussed was
Okay, I got it.
the amount of amendments within an amendment or a proposal. To give you, and I thought they were going to be separated out, so I guess they never did. But to give you an example, like proposal 1, there's 1, 2, 3 amendments within the one proposal. So the first one allows rentals 2 times a year. The second one allows rentals for any period up to 1 year, which changes our condo docs. The third one indemnifies association if unit owners don't pay the state tourist tax. Now that's new, I've never heard of that before. So I have no idea what that is, and there's no explanation of it. But anytime I see indemnification, if it indemnificates the village, generally that's good, it's protecting us. But I can't vote for it. If I don't want to vote for the other 2, I can't vote for that one. And I don't think it's fair. I think these things are definitely disenfranchising the unit owners.
Well, yes.
You know, without a doubt, having it that way. The second one, proposal 2, has 4 in it. You have one proposal and you have 4 major amendments within one proposal. So you either vote yes or no for the proposal and you approve all 4 of them, but if you don't like all 4 of them, you have no way to vote. And I don't think it's right.
Okay, and what Joe said on proposal number 2, this bothered us, and we made these objections when we first saw it. Why would you want to have 3 or 4 things on one amendment when you may not agree with all of them? It's just as easy to separate them out, because you want one and not the other, but apparently that's what the majority board wants. But now, we have in proposal 2, item 2, it allows a purchaser to buy a foreclosure, who buys a foreclosure to rent the apartment within 12 months, providing that he or she upgrades the unit to village standards. This original amendment was recorded in February of 2008. We have repeatedly asked for the board to approve the standards for upgrades. In other words, if somebody's going to buy an apartment that's really run down, and he wants to put a lot of money in, and put in refrigerators and cabinets and make it look good, new tile, then because he's upgrading the apartment, we give him the privilege to rent it within the next 12 months of ownership. We haven't had that. People are buying foreclosures, but and they may not be upgrading them. I have no control, I don't know what's going on. So that is something that makes us wary of that amendment. Why are we voting on an amendment when there are no standards to begin with? I think the standards should be established before we vote on it. Go ahead.
I was under the impression that the proposal, the one we have on the books already, there's no waiting period. If a unit owner, if a current unit owner buys a unit in foreclosure or in lieu of, there's zero waiting period. They can rent it immediately.
No. He must, no. If a unit owner buys a foreclosure,
Right.
he can rent it within 12 months instead of waiting for what was the other standard of 2 years. But in order to do it within 12 months, he must first upgrade it.
So you using the word within, it means he can rent it in less than 12 months? We have to wait 12 months?
No, he can rent it as soon as it has been upgraded according to units. Now, say somebody buys something on September 1st, terrible condition, he calls in the contractors, he buys a foreclosure, he rips out the whole apartment. 1 month later, he can rent it.
Okay.
That's the rule.
Okay.
But if he doesn't do it within 12 months, he has to wait the 2 years, which was the standard. What? It says here within 12 months. Okay? Now, part 4 of proposal 2, I don't know why, or if anyone else picked this up, but in our condo docs, we have that people cannot own more than 2 apartments, either with another person or with any other firm or entity. They took out the words firm or entity. And I thought that was a mistake for them to take it out. An entity could be something else other than a person, but not a corporation. And I thought that was very remiss of them to take that out. I objected to that, but they left it in. Okay, every one of this amendment, number 1, number 2, proposal number 2, are for encourage investors' interest. They believe that if we get investors here quickly, the investors will hurry up and they'll rent out the apartments and we'll start yielding this money, get money. Well, it might help that way, but then it's a catch-22. Every time an investor buys an apartment, they have a vote. And that means if you're going to let a lot of investors buy 50 or 60 apartments, they are going to control the village, and they will control every election forever. So we don't want too many investors buying into the community. I personally don't agree with the 4 apartment limit. I think no one should own more than 2 apartments. The board should have taken a position over the years to stop everybody, including my good friend Dougie Myers, from having that many apartments. And they should have taken action, but in doing the opposite, they're letting it and they're encouraging. Jerry Miro just bought his 4th, and he's looking for more. Jerry Miro came to me the other day, or at a budget meeting. He spoke for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, Jerry, and Jerry Miro was saying, hey, I can raise, or I am able to raise $1 million immediately, and we will form a consortium of investors, and we'll take that $1 million and we'll buy these apartments, we'll fix them up, we'll rent them out, and we'll do it very quickly. And when I told him it was illegal, he said to me, and he can attest to this, won't tell a story, Jerry will come up and speak on his own behalf, he's welcome. He said, let the courts decide. It's not the court's decision, that's in our docs already. And then I ran into him the other day, and he said again, he could get that $1 million. I says, why don't you lend the association that $1 million? We'll pay you 8% and we'll buy our own apartments. And we can benefit, let the unit owners benefit. And that's what the end of it. But Jerry doesn't give up so easy. He's sitting with Doug Myers, Elam Weiss, maybe the Horensteins, maybe Untobians, all of these people ready to cough up $50, $100, $200,000. He said he went to the pool and he found a guy who's ready to invest $50,000 into this thing. We can never let them do that. Otherwise, kiss your community goodbye. There's contradictions in the amendments, right in the very beginning. In the very beginning, it says, these amendments are to encourage, where did I put that in here? The amendments are supposed to encourage resident unit owners. In order to have a community of resident unit owners, it then says you can have 4 apartments. Well, resident unit owners only need 1. They have to rent the others out. So that's where we're being hoodwinked here. You're not getting the whole story. I don't believe in these fairy tales. I believe that the association should buy their own apartments. I suggested it to the property manager and some of the board members, and even Jerry Merrill. He thought it was a brilliant idea that we did it. He used those words at the budget meeting. He said, Scott had a brilliant idea 10 years ago. He said, buy your own apartments. Right, Jerry? You said that? Okay, that's what it is. And he thought it was a great idea. But I already offered that idea to the property manager, and he called our bank, and the bank that we get our loan from won't give us any advance money to buy our own apartments. But that's the most logical thing to do. If we had a consortium of unit owners that would lend the association money at some percent higher than what they're getting, that would be the thing to do. Because you can take an apartment and I'm not sure, but we may have the right of first refusal, even on foreclosures. I'm not sure about that. But if we did, we can buy everything at low price, fix it up like we did years ago, rent it out, sell it, and try to maintain a level without being overwhelmed by investors. So that's why we didn't want to, that's why we're voting no. Stuart and I are voting no.
Scott, there's
Any questions on that?
Yeah, Scott, one other point. It's a very important point. I attended a meeting
He's
with a
holding
bunch
the
of...
mic too close.
I attended a meeting with a bunch of... I don't even need it, I guess. I attended a meeting about a week and a half ago up in Coral Springs with a group of prudential realtors and brokers. And one of the topics of discussion was obviously condos, because condos got hit the hardest. The other thing we got to be aware of here is what's called a unit owner-renter ratio. And that's going to affect everybody that goes to try and sell. And they're looking at that a lot more now because it's a lot harder to get mortgages. Right. So if that unit owner ratio versus renter ratio gets out of skew, it's going to be very difficult for people, unless they're buying cash, they're applying for a mortgage, they get a mortgage. And that's a fact. The other thing we talked about, which affects this association, which we've never, ever done since I've been here, is they're looking more closely at reserves. And I've mentioned this for about the last 5 years. I would say probably in the next 2 years, you probably wouldn't be able to get a mortgage in an association that doesn't have reserves. So that's something that we're seriously going to have to consider. You don't have to fund it 100%. Every time we send it out, it's always fully funded. You can fund it 5%. They want to see some reserves to get mortgages, and that's going to affect us all. And that's what scares me about this. That's what scares me about it.
Anyone have any comments on the last couple of amendments? Now we go to proposal number 3. This is
Scott, I just want to add something to what Joe said, that I spent a lot of years in the mortgage business, and Joe is 100% correct. If you're over 25% in rentals, nobody's getting a mortgage. Also, if you don't have, now they switched, if you have no reserves, it is more difficult. You could get one, but it's very difficult. But the key cutoff is 25%. We have never done a legitimate census. We claim, according to the office, that we're at about 16, 17%, and I would like them to prove that to me. I say we're closer to 40, 50%. So we need a census, and the current majority refuses to do it.
okay. Stuart is 100% right. we don't know who's living next door to us. We know that Michael Schenkel is using Elam Weiss's apartment, Nottingham, one end. At the beginning of the year, he put in a family by the name of Harms that we objected to, and they let him come in there. Then he brought in another client, and the leadership of the community, in my opinion, and I think I'm speaking for Stuart's opinion, is the reason that Francis Mesereau is not enforcing Michael Schenkel's violations by bringing people in, and he's been doing it for a long time, is because Michael Schenkel is a swing vote. And believe me, in my opinion, Francis Mesereau sold out to the investors and will not take any action against Michael Schenkel, and that's why you have all of these amendments, most of which are pro-investor. So there's a sellout there, in my opinion.
I have a question for Stuart. You mentioned the number of rentals will have an effect on our ability of buyers to get mortgages. Won't the amount of delinquencies also have an effect?
That was the third thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. If you're over 10%, you're not getting a mortgage. I mean, the whole village, not you personally.
Okay.
And we're now over 15%.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Wouldn't that be an argument for getting as many foreclosed units purchased as possible to get those delinquencies off the books? And in other words, to help, whether it be investors or whatever, to get those units
It's a
purchased.
catch-22. If you do that, you're over 25%, you won't get a mortgage. And if you stand pat, your delinquency's too high, you won't get a mortgage.
But we don't know how many renters we have here. We need that information.
Well,
Okay.
then you have to come to meetings and insist to the board,
You asked for that? What?
how,
You said the cafeteria, what, a
We-
year or so ago when you were on sales list?
we need a legitimate census, and then we'll know where we stand. Right now, we're flying by the seat of our pants.
Do you have any suggestions of how to?
There are companies that will do it, but the board has to agree to it. We've suggested it, I don't know how many times. You suggested it when you were on the board over a year ago. Nothing happens because the board is afraid to do it, because they're interested in Michael Schenkel earning money and people like Jerry and that whole consortium making money on our backs.
There are companies that can.
There are companies that will do a census, they'll not come to us. Just like when the government takes a census, you know.
Yes,
a lot of
a
us knock on the
census,
doors and say,
Michael Schenkel said